Been using the Magic Keyboard case with my iPad Pro for a little over a week now, and I've got some thoughts. I really enjoy it. I'm so glad I bought it. I love using my iPad with it, and I want to tell you all the things I don't like. Let's begin. So the Apple Sheep showed his true colors on those day one impressions. I know there were a lot of people that disagreed, but kind of brought me back to the good old days, you know? There was a time when I just loved Apple products, defended them, and everyone on the internet hated them. Things have changed a lot since then. Now it feels like I diss on them a lot and people defend it, but now we're going back to the roots of Tailosive tech, which I'm happy about. So because my day one impressions video was so positive, I thought it would make sense to lean a little bit more into the negative, lean more into things I don't like about the Magic Keyboard case in today's video, which I'll start out with the material. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but the texture and material of this case, while it may feel nice on day one, it does not age very well. It shows oils, it shows little fingerprints, and it collects little dust particles that collect over time, especially with the keys, and it's not like affecting the performance, it's just an aesthetic thing that, I don't know, I feel like there's better materials you could have made this case out of that maybe don't show as much wear or stain as easily. All this stuff I'm sure I could wipe down and clean off. And there's probably cleaning products you guys will recommend. I like to wipe mine down with this little Clorox wipe and it makes it all fresh. Yeah, it's just, I don't know if there's a better way, but all I'm saying is it's kind of annoying. It doesn't, age super well. But again, doesn't affect performance. Another thing that bothers me that I forgot to bring up in my day one impressions video is the lack of function keys. I know why they don't have it, because the way the iPad Pro is floating above, you would be kind of having to tuck underneath the iPad to reach things like volume or display brightness, but that's something that I've just come to expect with MacBooks or on my Magic Keyboard that I use with my iMac, and not having on the iPad feels weird. It's bizarre that to change the volume, you either have to take the cursor up to Control Center and click and drag to change the display brightness or volume, or reach up and touch the volume rockers or power button, which are way high up on the device. There's also no button to lock the display, so I guess when you're done, you're just supposed to close it. I don't know if there's a way they could have figured it out. Like I suggested, they should probably build in some type of keyboard shortcuts that let you very quickly change the volume or display brightness. Maybe make it a setting if you want, but yeah, that's definitely something I feel is noticeably lacking when buying a keyboard case like this. The other issue I have with it is the viewing angles. On day one, I was okay with it because I was just kind of using it at my desk and occasionally on my lap, and I was like, yeah, you know what? This thing pivots back just about enough for me to look at it normally, but as time went on and I used this keyboard case more and more and more, I found myself always pushing it to the very, very limit of what it's capable of angling towards, and it's just a tad too limiting. If you were looking for reasons to not get the Magic Keyboard case besides the insanely high price tag, that's a good one, because the viewing angles on pretty much any laptop are going to be better than the iPad Pro and Magic Keyboard cover, and for something that's trying to emulate a laptop experience, that definitely feels like a downgrade. If you're used to putting your laptop in your lap with your legs kind of scooted up a little bit on a couch or somewhere, I don't know where you guys are, but it just feels like the viewing angles are slightly too limited, and maybe it's because of this whole balancing act between the keyboard case and the iPad. To get to a point where the iPad doesn't just tip the whole thing over, they have to orient it in such a way. But if Apple's watching this and they want to know what things they can improve on in the future, I'm not saying it has to flip around all the way backwards. I'm kind of okay with it being a separation of, if you want tablet mode, you take it out of the case, and if you want it in laptop mode, you keep it in the case. I'm okay with that differentiation because this is so heavy, I don't think it would be fun to have a mode that would flip it into, drawing mode where you just interact with the touchscreen, because this thing is heavy, so having that much weight you carry around with you when drawing on it, or having the keys on the back that you press when you're holding it in iPad mode, I don't think that would be better. I saw a lot of people wishing that it could fold into a complete iPad experience, but maybe it's just me, but even when I had my regular Smart Folio cover for my iPad Pro, if I knew that I was going to be using it on the couch and I was just going to be holding the iPad normally, I would take the cover off, because I just like feeling the iPad with nothing on it, and it's very thin and it's very light without any accessories attached, so I don't mind taking off cases or covers for my workflow. Maybe some of you guys think that's weird and you just want to be able to put a case on your iPad and never take it off. If you're that kind of person, there's probably cheaper keyboards or accessories out there that will do similar things to this, but as someone who loves taking cases off of my devices and occasionally using them, naked, but also wanting to be able to dock them into an accessory that adds a bunch of functionality when I'm ready to do more pro work stuff, especially at my desk, desk or when I want to type very regularly, which is usually when I'm responding to email, browsing Twitter, or checking Discord. That's when having the keyboard and trackpad experience is helpful. But also there's a lot of times where I'm making video thumbnails with my iPad and the Apple Pencil, and during those times, it's a lot easier to just be able to yank the iPad off the case, and they make that so dang easy with the smart connector that I'm very happy I got this accessory. No, I'm not returning it, by the way. I'm using this for as long as I have an iPad Pro that is capable with it. I really hope that in future iterations of the Magic Keyboard or future iterations of the iPad Pro, they don't change this back design, because it would suck if every time you wanted to get a new iPad, you also had to get a new Magic Keyboard case that was going to cost you another $400. So I'm really hoping that, similar to the Apple Watch bands, which have stayed the same over the years, they can kind of keep this smart connector and magnet design for the Magic Keyboard and iPad combo, keep those the same. And we also should applaud Apple for making sure that this keyboard case works with the 2018 iPad Pro, because I feel like it would have been totally easy and simple for them to just tinker the smart connector in a little way. I don't know how, just maybe move it to a different part of the iPad, or say that, well, to support the pass-through charging on the USB-C port, we had to redesign the smart connector, and now it's not compatible with the 2018 iPad Pro. And they could have forced everyone to buy a 2020 model if they wanted to use the keyboard case, but they didn't. Even though the camera cutout is a little bit weird on the back, I'm very happy that I don't have to spend another $1,000 on an iPad just to use this accessory. But yeah, outside of those negatives, I have not used the standard USB-C port on my iPad, because using this pass-through charge port is way more convenient. I just plug that in, and oftentimes I just leave it on my desk, and when I need the iPad to charge, it's kind of like it has its own dedicated wireless charger. I can just drop it and boom, it starts charging, and when I'm ready to go or take it to the couch and just use it in iPad mode, I can pull it off really easily. But this is also a new experience for me, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but I did not buy that standard smart keyboard folio case, because I thought $200 for just a keyboard was way too much. But the reason I'm okay with spending hundreds of dollars on an accessory like this is, for one, it gives you this really solid trackpad, which is very consistent with clicking across every part of it, unlike a lot of Windows laptops I've used where it's kind of the diving board mechanism and the click changes depending on where you want to touch it. It's the best trackpad I've ever used that's not a force touch trackpad, which is what we have on MacBook Pros and MacBook Airs that we've had for so long. But having that trackpad allows for more precise uses and allows it to really convert into a laptop, and the way they've redesigned the cursor for iPadOS has been really fluid. I thought the smaller trackpad size was going to be a problem, but because it moves so quickly throughout the screen, I'm able to do multitasking and still, go to Control Center and change things really quickly, even though that trackpad does appear to be kind of tiny. I've mentioned this before, but it honestly feels like I got a brand new laptop when I bought this accessory, because now I have this completely new interaction with the device where I don't have to touch the display if I don't want to, and I still have great speakers. I have an amazing front-facing camera, so when we record the Tailosive Tech podcast, I'm FaceTiming Nick and Randy, and now we actually have decent cameras instead of those crappy MacBook cameras, and also we still have good cameras on the back, which MacBooks haven't had ever, so having way more viewing angles now with this keyboard case compared to my folio cover, which was $100 with my old iPad Pro, but it had very, very limited viewing angles. It was basically just one, and that was it. You had one propped up angle, and if you didn't want that one, you basically had to hold the iPad or prop it up against something. So definitely kind of crazy for a product that costs this much. So this feels like the experience has been completed through and through. It is a 2-in-1 device, but it's a solid 2-in-1 end-to-end. You've got a great and thought-out tablet experience, and you've got a great and thought-out laptop experience now as well. Though I agree, hopefully at Worldwide Developers Conference we get some more keyboard and trackpad optimization for pro apps and things like Final Cut, Logic, and Xcode. That would make the keyboard and mouse even more helpful. But the hardware is now there, and the third parties are slowly going to start adopting to it and make the iPad more of a laptop type experience. But I know a lot of you guys are bringing up that for this amount of money you should just buy a MacBook Air, because then you have a fully fledged laptop. Well, the only reason I would recommend someone go with a MacBook Air or a low-end MacBook Pro over this is if there's absolutely something you need that's software-based that the iPad cannot do. In my opinion, the iPad wins in almost every hardware compartment. It's only the software limitations that make the MacBook still worthy, because let's compare the two. I mean, iPad Pro, you've got 120 hertz display, you've got equal bezels all the way around. Compared to the MacBook, it's still kind of same old dated design, whereas when you're using this thing as a laptop, it looks super futuristic. You've also got way better front-facing camera. You got a better biometric with Face ID, which, by the way, when using this thing, I realized how far away Face ID can actually work on an iPad Pro. It can still be like 2.5 feet away from my face and it will unlock just fine. That's way easier, in my opinion, than having to rest your finger on a Touch ID sensor or hope that macOS Catalina registers that you're wearing an Apple Watch, which has been spotty for me lately. So Face ID, it's better than Touch ID, and it's also better than the Apple Watch unlock mechanism because it also works in so many different things, like my banking apps or when I'm logging into different accounts and I need to access iCloud keychain passwords. I'm already looking at the device, so I don't have to rest my finger on a certain part of the keyboard. It just looks at me and unlocks very, very quickly. So I've never had a laptop work that well, and also I've never owned a laptop that I can take it into tablet mode really quickly and also have, you know, a completely operational and thought through OS that isn't super compromising and expecting me to have a keyboard connected to it at all times. So cellular option is also a thing on the iPad Pro that the MacBooks don't have. So if you want to have LTE on a laptop, iPad can do that. MacBook Air has 2 USB-C ports, but they're on one side. This has 2 USB-C ports. They're on opposite ends, so you can charge it from either side of the iPad you want. Only limitation being this one doesn't support data, but only reason it helps to have USB-C on both sides is that you can charge it from either end. I think if you're plugging in external drives or third-party accessories and stuff, you don't really mind putting it on one side over the other. But the A12X chip is also insanely fast compared to some of the base CPUs they put in the, you know, $1,400 and under MacBook Air. So OS fluidity, CPU speed, GPU speed, you know, gaming performance. Can you play Fortnite at 120 FPS on your MacBook Air? I don't think so, because it doesn't even support 120 Hz display. You've got better cameras here, you've got great speakers, you've got the LTE option, and now with the keyboard and trackpad support, there's less and less of a reason to go with a MacBook, but I completely admit it's still there. This thing's definitely a little bit heavier than a MacBook, but I think people complaining about the weight of the iPad with the keyboard case, it's getting a little hypocritical. You know, Apple made this super thin, super light iPad Pro, and then people got mad because it was really easy to bend the thing. So now you can buy, you know, a beefy keyboard case that puts it in this very protective design that now means, okay, it's way harder to bend this thing because there's way more metal. And now everyone goes, ew, this is too thick and it's too heavy. It's like, can you just pick one? You know, if you want it to be thin and light, I guess don't try to bend it. But if you want it to be durable and thicker, then don't complain about the weight. So I don't think the weight is that bad, honestly. And this is like the heaviest configuration there is. Maybe y'all need to lift more. You know, this is how I bench in the morning. But in my opinion, it absolutely reinvents your iPad Pro if you've been using one for a long time and you don't want to get a new iPad. This one will make you feel like you have a new device, and you're spending about as much as a new iPad, but not a good one. And I completely admit at the same time, this is not for everyone. There's a lot of people that should not buy this keyboard case that don't have that much disposable income or don't really need a keyboard and trackpad experience to be this flexible. If you're looking for a case that you want to leave your iPad in at all times and never take it out of, I'm sure you guys know of all the third-party options that are cheaper, and they won't have smart connector support, and they won't be floating designs, and the keys probably won't feel as good because the keyboard on this thing feels almost identical to the Magic Keyboard I use with my iMac. So I really enjoy having that transition, going from Mac to iPad and not really noticing a difference. Really heavy duty, really well built, and just complete overkill. So take that as you will. I would say if you have a 2018 iPad Pro and you're looking to freshen it up a bit, absolutely try out the Magic Keyboard case. If you're tight for cash, you shouldn't be watching these videos anyway. It's dangerous. But if you have thoughts on the Magic Keyboard case, feel free to join my Discord or hit me up on Twitter. I'm known for causing way less drama than Elon Musk. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.